Hello, testing. Hi. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Dominic Cheah. I work for Tintri. A little bit about my background. I've been working more than 10 years in the storage industry. I started out as storage tech on the tape side, and I worked at Symantec and Backup Veritas before the acquisition. And after that, I went to data domain, and I was working with in the QA application engineering for integration work and also for competitive as well. So what I did back in my day at EMC was I took a look at all the data backup applications out there. We kind of did the competitive analysis of all of those. Net backup, Commvault, Veeam, Evermart Networker, and see what kind of advantages and stuff like that each of these applications have, right? So moving on real quick, I just have to show you guys about the disclaimer from VMware. There's nothing in the slides that's going to be talking about futures with the VMware stuff. What I will be talking about is just with the VMware 5 version that's already available. So this is the agenda that we will be talking about today. Exploring data protection for VMware vSphere, vSphere snapshots, cloning and replication, guest level backups, vStorage API for VADP, everybody calls that, right? Data protection applications, VMware VDP, what are the transport modes that's available, right? And then a summary. So a quick show of hands, how many of you guys, I know you all are virtualization, but how many of you guys are the backup administrators, right? So how many of you guys are actually using Veeam? Yeah. How about Net Backup? A few guys. Commvault? Cool. Tivoli Storage Manager? Okay, a few guys as well. Cool. And the ArcServe or HP Data Protector, all those, right? Cool. All right. So each and every one of those applications, they have their good strengths and weaknesses. All of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. I will talk about them when I get to that as well. Exploring data protection for VMware vSphere. So in terms of the data protection piece of it, right? What exactly is data protection? It's actually having more than one original source of data available, right? So either copy 2, copy 3, or whatever number of copies that you have available in case you need to do a restore, a disaster recovery in some other location, right? That's data protection, right? So data protection doesn't just encompass the use of snapshots, cloning, and replication. It also deals with, for example, some of these databases. How many of you guys are actually Oracle database administrators, right? So I believe the tool that you guys prefer is definitely RMAN, right? Doing backup, right? So data protection applications, what do they have? We have the inbuilt vSphere data protection for VMware. And that's actually based on the Evermart technology, right? Then you have the third-party apps, Veeam, Commvault, Net Backup, etc. Right? Then let's just go through. So snapshots, right? Snapshots is part of the data protection. We use it a lot, right? We use it for doing quick recoveries whenever we want to, or snap it so that we can clone it and then do test recoveries and before we do upgrades and stuff like that, right? What does actually it covers is it makes sure that your VM memory, your power settings, it's a point-in-time contents of the metadata and your VMDK files, right? It's very simple to do. Everybody has done that, right? You can do it through the UI. Now, what about vSphere cloning? What's vSphere cloning? It's just actually creating a duplicate of your existing virtual machine, right? You have your computer name, your network settings, your VMDK, VMX files. Right? And it's also a copy of your contents, right? And we do this every day, all right? Everybody has been doing that for quick recoveries and stuff like that, for testing, making sure that you have some fulfilling your company requirements and stuff like that. So what else is that? We have vSphere replication, right? And it's an asynchronous replication of virtual machine to another location, right? The latest version of replication, it's integrated with Microsoft VSS. So your application that has SQL, SharePoint, Exchange, it's great. You can replicate it, right? It's customizable. You have your retention of replicated historical points for VM recovery. So I believe this is up to 24 recovery points, right? And every 15 minutes, there's the replication piece that you can, by default, right? There's no application agent required, so it's very easy to use, right? But if we look at vSphere VMware snapshot, cloning, and replication, so what do we get with those solutions? We get point-in-time snapshots, right? Multiple copies, yes, we have those. VSS application consistency, yes, we have those as well. Business continuity, so that if you have a failure or disaster recovery in primary site, you can bring up all your virtual machines on the secondary site, right? Just with snapshots, cloning, and replication. But how about log management? About your SQL transaction logs. Does it take care of that? It doesn't do that, right? There's no application log management with snapshot, cloning, and replication, right? How about legal holds and e-discovery? So in the US, you guys know about a lot of the lawsuits that people will bring up, just based on one particular email. How do you go about searching for that? You can't do that with snapshots, cloning, and replication, right? So that's where the backup application comes in. Veeam, you have your search server, you have those capabilities, you have your the ability to just search for a particular keyword file or whatever, right? And just kind of archive it or make sure that you fulfill your e-discoveries. So can you archive indefinitely with snapshots, cloning, and replications? You can't do that. You can do it for a certain point in time. So for example, with snapshots, VMware even recommends that you do no more than 2 snapshots, right, per virtual machine, right, because of performance purposes, right? So how about extended retention of your data, right? Some will argue, why do I put a question mark on that? Because if we look at extended retention, it depends on whose, what's the word I'm looking for? Whose definition is it in terms of extended retention? 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 year? How about 5 years and 7 years, right? Can snapshot, cloning, and replication actually meet that? So how do I get more data protection? Well, that's where Veeam comes in, Net Backup, Commvault, and the rest of the other solutions, right? So one key point is from the IDC, the data protection and recovery software market is actually a $5.6 billion, right, in 2013. They have it's a single-digit growth, but it's growth. $5.6 billion, that's a lot of money, right? And most guys, I believe here also would say, most of these new solutions out there, VDPA, Veeam, they are more geared towards virtualization, protecting your virtual machines, right? And who are the key players? Well, we have EMC, Evermind, Networker, NetBackup, Symantec, Commvault, Impana, and others, HP, CA, Microsoft, Acronis, PhD Virtual. So before we talk about the rest of the transport modes and stuff like that, so how can you protect your virtual machines, right? In terms of, let's just say you have an application, SQL Server A, AJ, or Exchange that. How do you do that? A few of the customers that I talk to actually prefer to use the guest level backup, which is actually installing the agents, right, on the virtual machine itself. So then you can back it up as like a physical server. And some of the data protection solutions out there, for example, like Networker, Symantec Net Backup, a few others as well. They do client direct. So guys who are actually like Oracle administrators, right? They have the client direct capability that you can actually use as they. So in terms of giving you the control, the guys and gals who are actually the Oracle database administrators can actually do your own backups and recoveries using client direct with some of these applications out there. So what is VADP? Well, I think everybody knows that, right? It allows you to actually back up your virtual machine as a virtual machine, right? You're not treating it as a physical server. You have your VSS, you're taking care of it, just like that, right? It's quick, it's efficient. It's what it's designed for, right? VADP is the solution for protecting your virtual machines. So it also enables you to do file level restores. And also, it uses vStorage change block tracking for more efficient backup and restore. And these are all the vendors out there, right? That's actually supporting. Everybody is actually doing virtual VADP protection, right? That's one of the ways to do that with VMware, right? Let's see. That's a one before I go back. Okay, great. So image level backups. Image level backups, how does it work? There's no backup agents, right? We're using VADP to do that, right? So backup proxy is a term that's used by a few vendors. For example, NetBackup actually calls it a backup server. Well, a backup server is actually a proxy, which is a proxy, right? Same thing, but using the different term doesn't mean that it's not a proxy server. It's a proxy server. In terms of the net backup itself, the proxy server can also be a media server, and then Commvault as well, media agent, so on and so forth. What are the VADP transport modes that they support? HotAdd, NBDSSL, and SAN. So we talked about just the basic stuff. I'm sure everybody has a very good idea about the VADP, the exploring of the data protection for VMware vSphere. So we'll dive into data protection applications and the VMware VDP. So what do data protection solutions have in common out there? Right, it supports vStorage APIs for data protection. You have your image level backups. Application data protection using guest level backups. Right, installing the agents on those virtual machines to do your backup as treating it as a physical server. Right, it's a lot of the backup individuals that I talk to, they prefer it that way, right? Because if you do the application-aware consistent backup in most cases, sometimes when you want to when you have to update your OS or even the application, the VSS writer or the requester itself, well, there may be some issues as well when you run into, depending on the backup vendors, right? I'm sure everybody has run into some of those. So I think a lot of preferred method is to use guest level backups because it has been proven to work. It's the traditional way of doing backups, right? For all those Exchange, SQL, and SharePoint. Oops, sorry. And then data protection applications also allows you to create multiple local copies, offsite copies, and allows you to do legal host and e-discovery. And you can do extended retention periods, right? Putting off to somewhere to tape or whatever, right? Most of the people that I talk to, some of the folks here, tape, moving it to Iron Mountain, right, for a longer retention period. So VMware VADP best practices. Well, the OVF itself, you probably want to do thin provisioning. The reason is because when you provision the OVF itself, you want to do thin provisioning. Because in version 5.5 and above, 5.5 and above, is that you can actually grow the storage for VDP. In the older versions, is that once you provision it, you're actually stuck with that provision size. You can't grow it. So with newer versions of VDP, you can actually extend or grow the backup storage. 5.8 also has new support for Exchange DAG, as well as SQL always-on availability groups. So that's new in VDPA. So basic stuff is you have to use static IP address for VDP appliance. You have to have those information ready before you start to deploy your VDP appliance. The reason is because there's some process within the wizard itself where you don't have the correct information. You have to actually start from the scratch again, start from step 1. So it's always make sure you have all the information that's required, the requirement for VDP, before you start deploying it. And use FQDN, right? It's easy because every time if you change an IP address, if you refer to FQDN, it's no problem. Skip some of this stuff. Provision user account, yeah. Given. So once you have it deployed, you can actually see the services for VDP up and running from the UI itself. It's that simple. It's quick, very easy. So with VDP, for applications, you still have to install an agent on it. For even if you're protecting your DAG or SQL, always on availability groups. And how do you do that? It's just it's just very simple. You just open up the VMware VDP for Exchange setup or the SQL and then just click it and it's all done. Now, this particular screen here that you're looking at, so sometimes you might run into that as well if your connections are not set correctly. Let's just say if you have a different subnet or something like that, you put it on. And then it's also recommended that even if you have multiple Exchange, each of those Exchange server, you should back it up as its own backup job. It supports restore to original and restore using the restore storage group or restore database recovery database. So the recommendation is actually don't restore it into a production environment. Restore it to your recovery database or recovery storage group. That way you don't affect your live data that's in production, right? VADP transport modes. This is more of an interesting topic, hopefully. So HotAdd, everybody understands it, everybody prefers it, everybody uses it, right? HotAdd is very simple. It's actually just linking a snapshot that's linked to the proxy server as an independent, non-persistent disk, right? It's quick setup. So some of the things that I actually see people running into is that in terms of the HotAdd backup, sometimes people assume that 1 gig connection is the 1 gig connection for the storage network is fine. Try to use the 10 gig connection if you have it for your. The reason is because, like, for example, let's just say if you have HotAdd and you are using that backup or Commvault, right? Your media agent or your media server might not be the virtual machine itself, right? The destination where it holds the backup target. So you want to use a 10 gig storage network so that you can ensure you have the bandwidth to put all your data to the physical media server, media agent. The proxy server in this sense must be a virtual machine. It can also be a backup server. Backup server is the net backup term, right? So it's just showing the HotAdd attached. So exploring some common HotAdd, VADP HotAdd failures. Does anybody recognize why this occur? Right. No connection to the host, right? It's pretty common when you don't have the connection for the EXX host talking to the storage set up correctly. And what is this particular error an indication of? Failure to unable to access files since it's locked. So what happens in this case is that you could have some of your virtual disk that's attached to the proxy server not being cleaned up. So in the end, when you're doing another new backup, you have all these VMDKs that's still attached to the proxy server, which can interrupt your backup. So be aware of that as well. So HotAdd transport mode, make sure you have a proxy host that has network access to EXX, deploy additional proxy server for HotAdd as needed, manually remove VMDK files if you hit that issue where your VMDK is actually stuck to the proxy server. Don't use HotAdd for independent disks. And this is some of the old stuff. VMware vSphere, this doesn't apply to VMware vSphere, right? NBDSSL transport. Well, it's a network block device, right? So it's actually using network file copy to actually move your data to your proxy server and to your backup server, stuff like that. Again, recommendation: please use a 10 gig storage network for that. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Use 10 gig. Proxy server can be a physical server or virtual machine. Proxy server can be a backup server if you're talking about net backup. NBDSSL transport mode pitfalls. So anybody has seen this before? That's when you actually hit the NFC maximum connectivity. In version 5, it's 52. So be aware of that. So in terms of the the network file copy connections, it's on a per VMDK basis. So be aware of that. VM restore operation using a third-party backup solution. Do you guys see this particular setup where I have actually, it's just one Exchange server, but there's two VMDKs on there? Do you notice there's HotAdd and also there's also NBD being used? Do you know why this could occur? So for example, in some of the backup applications, if you use automatic selection in terms of the transport mode, the backup application is going to be taking care of figuring out what's the best available transport mode to do your backup for that particular virtual machine. So if you ran out of if you cannot attach additional VMDKs to the proxy server, it's about 15 VMDKs that you can attach to a proxy server. If you hit that maximum, right, and you're backing up this particular Exchange server itself, and you have more than 2-3 additional VMDKs, guess what? It's going to use any other additional transport modes that it can use. It's available to that particular backup. So sometimes people will see, hey, how come this backup is running a little bit slower than I originally see on Monday? Take a look at the logs on the backup application. And this is, by the way, this is actually from the VDPA logs. Yeah. So transport mode, I'm not going to try to repeat this. Just don't exceed the NFC, actually it's not NFS, but it's NFC connection limits on an EXX server, which is 52, so per virtual machine. It's a VMDK for each of those. I had a question one about how do we make sure that we don't, how do we provision so that we don't hit that limit? Well, it's on a per VMDK basis, so you have to make sure that when you're doing your backups, you don't hit more than 52 VMDKs when you're backing it up. So SAN transport mode, everybody has also tried this as well. You have SAN, backup server, traditional LAN storage array that's attached through fiber channel to the backup proxy host or the backup server. Now, VDP Advanced does not support it. VDP Advanced only supports, or VDP supports HotAdd, NBD, and NBDSSL. All right. Deployment best practices for SAN transport mode. Well, you have to make sure that your HBAs are compatible at the target and the source itself. And configure and verify your initiator and target zoning on SAN. Yeah, we haven't done that. Proxy server should be a physical server. Right, and this is the do's and don'ts of SAN transport mode. So one of the things I want to make you guys aware of in terms of the SAN transport mode is that, let's just say, for example, if you have a physical net backup Commvault media server that's attached through fiber to the SAN and through the traditional storage. And also, let's just assume for the backup itself is also attached to SAN. If you look at it from the media server or the media agent itself, if you don't have, for example, an EMC power path tool, it's very difficult to kind of find out what worldwide node name belongs to which disk. So make sure you also have some kind of tool that can allow you to figure out what's the mapping of the LUNs. So this is an example that I'm going to be showing you in a quick movie. A quick short MP4 movie. So in this example, what we have is backup server, which is a physical system. We have the traditional LUN storage attached, and then the EXX data, and the traditional LUN storage also is provisioned to the EXX data store. So this is so what I'm going to do is on the proxy services, I'm deleting let's just say I'm the administrator, I'm just accidentally deleted the storage because I don't know what it was being used for. You can see right away, I can actually corrupt the SAN, the data store itself. So be very careful who you give access to on the media server or the Windows media server or the media agent, so that they just don't go and try to delete or initialize a particular LUN that they have no clue about, right? Because that's very easy to corrupt your data store. And when that happens, you have to restore your whole entire LUN itself. So this is from NetBackup. So in that case, when you have your backup running, all your backup jobs are going to fail. All your restore jobs are going to fail. So what's next when you hit that kind of situation? It's somebody's job is on the line, right? Somebody has to figure out how do we get back all the data and stuff like that. All right, so this is a quick summary in terms of the SAN transport mode. For the top 10 do's and don'ts for the transport modes. For SAN, ensure you have FCHBA ports, proxy server discovered. Set SAN policy on the proxy server to online all, because you're going to be doing your recovery as well. You're going to be doing restore. Your restore is going to require online all anyway. HotAdd NBDSSL use a 10 gig network access. And these are some of the don'ts for the transport modes, right? So these are some of the resources that we have available for each of the backup applications that's out there. We've done it with Tintri. Our booth is actually over in G309. If you guys want to find out more, as virtualization admins, virtualization experts, you guys are wanting to manage virtual machines, right? Stop by the Tintri booth. We'll talk to you about how we actually have the solution for you to manage your virtual machine instead of managing storage. Right, so just real quick. So please fill out the survey for the EMC stuff. So is there any questions that I can address? All right, I guess we're good. All right, thank you very much, guys.